It is Wednesday, October 21st. Hell yeah. And the Tampa Bay Rays just closed out the fourth inning, up 3-0. That plus money line working for,
It's over.
working
This
for
World
Daddy.
Series is over.
But baseball's almost over, and we are really getting into the thick of the football season. We've got a really, really good division race that maybe got a little bit of clarification last weekend, just a little.
Little bit.
And
Little bit.
we're going to get into all of that right after we visit Chad's Beer Corner.
Today, I brought out a classic because a lot of people keep saying we're going to talk about the great Steelers win later. They keep saying more of the same. And I was thinking, what's a beer that I just have a lot, but still treating yourself real nice? So this is Founders KBS, Kentucky Breakfast Stout. And this is from 2016. It's the oldest beer I have on the shelf. I usually buy a 4-pack of this every year and save one. 2016, because you know what? Whooping the Browns' ass is a tradition, and it goes way back. It goes way back. So that's what we're drinking today. Kentucky Breakfast Stout from Founders. Used to be like a limited release. I think they just kind of always have it around now. I don't really know. But it's yummy. Coffee, maple, aging. Yeah, we're going to be just fine, Joey. We're going to be
Getting
just
the
fine.
maple involved early, just like Randy Fichtner.
Mm-hmm.
But before we talk about any of that fun jazz, we will talk. Well, this will be fun for some people. Let's talk about the Ravens' little road trip up the shore there to Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the home of brotherly love.
Which game do you
Wow.
want to talk about?
Yeah, for real. This basically was two games. The first half, the Ravens absolutely dominated. It was 17-0. I think Calais Campbell had like 2 sacks and a tackle for loss in the first drive, which was a 3-and-out. I think the Eagles started with 6 3-and-outs. It was at least 3 consecutive. And they had like 6 3-and-outs in the first half. It was a shit pumping, and everything would have led us to think that this was your typical Ravens beating down a bad team, just like they did pretty much all last year and this year. And then you could kind of feel it changing. So the offense was never really rolling. They went in the field position battle. No big plays other than the Lamar touchdown run in the first half. And it was just kind of had that feeling. At the end of the first half, the Eagles started to get a little bit going on a drive that I think got killed by a penalty, and they missed a field goal. But Jalen Hurts started to get involved, and Doug Peterson started to get a little creative because playing offense straight up was basically just getting Carson Wentz murdered. And Jalen Hurts kind of infused a little vitality, a little energy into the Eagles, and it was a different story in the second half. The Ravens, it was just sloppy. I don't think the Eagles particularly did anything well. There was a lot of penalties on offense, a lot of second and 20 somethings, third and 20 somethings because of holdings and blocks in the back and this type of stuff, which is weird because the narrative for the season all over the media the last couple weeks has been like, oh, the boom in scoring is because of like record low holding penalties being called, and then it's like fucking holds everywhere in this game.
all sorts of everything penalties, alignments, false starts, holds. I
Yep.
mean, I was trying to count the Ravens' offensive line penalties. I think I lost track at like 37. Like
It was
it,
crazy. It
it
was
felt
crazy.
pretty bonkers.
And then,
I
so to
don't.
wrap up the end of the game, in the fourth quarter, the Ravens had a 16-point lead, as I predicted last week on the AFC Northcast. And then it just disappeared. Fulgham started doing Randy Moss types of things. Got a little bit of help from the Zebras on some questionable 50-yard pass interference calls on like 2-minute drives. And
One. One.
so the Eagles got a touchdown, went for two. The Ravens had, I think it was a 3-and-out, and Philly got the ball back. And the pass interference happened like first play of that drive. And
It
so
was
they
quick.
were in Ravens territory. They ended up scoring another touchdown and then going for two to tie the ball game. And the play call that they called on second down on the 2-point conversion was a read option play between Carson Wentz and the backup running back, Boston Scott.
Bart, Boston, whatever.
What the fuck?
Dude, I'm so irritated that we don't do this podcast till Wednesday because the second that play happened, I got on our text chain
Yep.
and I said, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And now there's all these internet articles about it. Like, I'm not pirating this take, people.
No.
The Ravens practice against that play with the two best people in the NFL at running it every week. And you're telling me that Carson Wentz and Boston Scott are going to succeed from the two? They tried it earlier in the game with Miles Sanders, and they got like 2 yards when the defense was all spread out because they were at midfield. It's like, dude, it's just the worst. It's just the worst. Do it against any other team. Do it against the Steelers. Do it against the Giants or the Cowboys. Like, I get it. Like, I get where your head's at, but idiotic. You want a little bit of analytics every week. We've gotten a few listeners to say that. We're not going to name it as requested, but that was ridiculous. Like, that was just very. You cannot have a drunk guy knowing that was a bad play call as it happened. Like, you just can't have that. You just can't. You can't have that. So they blew it. They blew it big time. I know you got a lot of respect for Fulgham now. He caught the late touchdown that got it to a 1-score game. He's dangerous. He's physical.
Yeah.
He's physical.
He didn't really do much until the second half either, and then he just did the whole Vince Young thing, suck a bunch, and then go the fuck off in the second half.
That's right. You got some nice games from guys that leading into the year we wanted to see, right? So you had Calais Campbell. He's the AFC Player of the Week because he had 3 sacks. I counted 2 in the first half. Mm-hmm. And he was just, I mean, he's been dominant, right? We talked about it. He's getting all those pass deflections and stuff. But we want the sexy stats, Calais. We want the sexy stats. And he brought him. He brought him this week. He was very, very disruptive. So that's exciting for you. Yeah. And you had Desean Elliott. Desean Elliott forcing 2 fumbles. So that's pretty cool. One of them was at the end of a 75-yard run and ended up being a touchdown anyway. We don't need to focus on that.
Robbed of his first career interception.
Yeah, I think he just didn't catch it.
Yeah.
So he robbed himself by not catching it. So that's, I don't know how much injustice is there, but that's cool if you want to get upset about that. I was trying to keep track of the Eagles' yards because towards the end of it was maybe the middle of the second quarter, I think the Eagles had 5 yards of offense. And then they got the ball back towards the end of the first half, and they got like sacked right away. And I was like, holy crap, I think the Eagles have negative total yards right now. But then they brought in Jalen Hurts and got that 20-yard run, which is what everybody's talking about. But a few plays later, they did what I think might be the coolest 3 yards we've seen gained against the Ravens this year.
Yeah.
A double
The
pass,
pass.
right? They throw it out wide to the right, and then they throw it all the way back down to the left from Wentz to Hurst, and then he runs 3 yards and gets tackled.
Yeah.
2nd and 7.
Hurts took the snap and threw it backwards to Wentz out wide.
Yeah.
And
Then he ran down.
Whatever down deep was covered because he looked, and then he just threw it right back to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, very exciting double pass. Probably the funnest way you'll ever get to 2nd and 7 this year in the NFL. So I wanted to call a little highlight to that. You mentioned Lamar's touchdown run. There's not a ton else exciting to say about his play today, but I will say this, like, we've talked about it a few times, and I like to be a person of honesty. When I speculated on how to stop Lamar, I speculated that if you closed in on him in the middle of the field and hit him a bunch, that could work. It is not what you do. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The key, and we'll talk about it every week until the Steelers do it successfully, usher him out of bounds. And the Eagles did it sometimes, but twice this week they did not. And one of them was on a read option, and I think that was the touchdown, and he faked it and he ran right up the middle. And when he's in the middle, nobody knows what to do because he can run any direction and he can't just scoot out of bounds. He has a natural instinct to protect himself, so he doesn't usually initiate contact if he feels like he's gotten a few yards. Those runs up the middle, you just cannot have that. You cannot have that. Like both of his long touchdown runs this year, and he had a long run, I think it was in the first half. It was part of one of their drives. He had like a 20-yard run up the middle. He is just crazy up the middle. It is unacceptable. You need to usher him to a sideline with the utmost urgency. Everyone, this is a public service announcement. Lamar Jackson is not safe in the middle of the field, okay? You can let him do almost anything else this year. He's running backwards and throwing off his back foot. He's not throwing particularly accurately, especially to the sidelines. But even in the middle of this game, I noticed him throwing some slants high. There was a deflection that was almost intercepted. There are turnovers to be had right now. But do not let this man run in the middle of the field at all costs.
Yeah. I'll come with two silver linings. The first is less of just a cop-out. So the first is Desean Elliott. Sarah Ellison, she is a Baltimore Ravens beat writer, is a really good follow on Twitter for those of you that are interested in knowledgeable people that don't fanboy or fangirl too much about the teams that they're covering, but like to point out the things that they're doing well. Contrasted the Earl Thomas pulling up the famous Nick Chubb run from the drubbing last year. Earl Thomas pulling up at like midfield and not chasing it down, with the big long Miles Sanders run where Desean Elliott, Earl Thomas's replacement, ran down Miles Sanders and forced a fumble on like the 3-yard line. Granted, the Eagles recovered it in the end zone for a touchdown. Just another like fluky, weird thing about this game that helped make it close. There was also a defender right there, so depending on where that ball bounces, like that's possibly a turnover.
Okay.
Marlon Humphrey forced a fumble in this game.
Yeah, again.
It's stupid at this point.
He kicked it out of bounds like an idiot.
And, but, yeah, I mean, the hustle, that's what the Ravens talk about when they do their whole, like, play like a Raven thing. And obviously Earl Thomas was not that. So that's a good silver lining from this game. And then the other one is, this is a 5-1 team going into the bye week. The Ravens were 4-2 at this point last year, and they're not playing their best, like offense, defense, really, like especially the second half against Philly. That's probably their worst half this season. other than the Chiefs game. Chiefs game aside, because that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, maybe they were playing their best against the Chiefs and they still got drubbed.
Yeah, it's
That's one way to
possible.
look at it. That's
It's
how I'm looking
possible.
at it. That was
Um,
their best effort.
yeah, that was a schematic fail. That was I blame Don Martindale for all of that. The Chiefs game.
So
But
you
anyways,
survived. They failed the 2 point conversion. The final score was 30-28. Not quite the 16-point victory that you projected. Not even quite the 9-point
it
victory that
almost
the
was.
Steelers did. Almost. Right, right. Almost. Like we care about that. Um, I have an interesting stat for you. I'm going to, I try to keep it to a minimum, but your people at Film Study Baltimore podcast pointed this out. And I thought it was interesting because your next game is against the Steelers, who have, arguably the best pass rush in the NFL. If you're someone else, it's not an argument if you're me, it just is, very clearly is. The Eagles rushed 4 on 29 of 30 Ravens pass attempts. And if you were me watching that game, they were getting some pressure. So are you concerned at this point about the offensive line? And in your mind, is there anything obvious that can be done?
I have been concerned about the offensive line for a few weeks now. Um, I think you maybe consider moving Powers over to right guard to help out Orlando Brown. I think Stanley and Skura can kind of anchor the left side and help out whoever you want to plug in at left guard. But basically, having whatever replacement level player filling in for Yonda and then Brown on the right side is like very clearly not working. I think Stanley's been pretty good, other than some of the sloppiness in the second half this past week. Um, so I think that's something to consider. The Ravens have done. The last time the Ravens won the Super Bowl, they did a bunch of offensive line shuffling in season. Um, Maybe a trade happens or something like that. There's a couple pieces that I think a veteran wide receiver, the Ravens let Seth Roberts go and Boykin is supposed to kind of fill his role, but Boykin hasn't quite been as, I think, sharp as you'd hope. So there's some spots where you could really use like a veteran, good ball player. But there's time. It's only 6 weeks in, so.
All right.
But yes,
All
I'm
right.
concerned about the offensive line. But other than moving Powers over, like I don't know with what they have right now if there's anything really you can do about it.
Do you think that there's a way that Lamar can change his style of play that can help because he doesn't seem to be handling the reduction in their quality of play with the grace that I think we all anticipated because of his elusiveness. So I don't know if there's anything you think about that because I mean my natural reaction is just to make fun of him, but maybe there's something productive we can be learned from this.
No, I don't think you want to ask him to change what he does too much. He did show, and it's only been once this year against Kansas City, he showed like the total like young quarterback regression type shit where like pressure was getting home a couple plays in a row and then like the next play would be a 3rd and long and he wasn't even like after the first read he was taken off, and he does kind of regress to that sometimes. But I think that will just come with reps. He hasn't had that much until this season. He didn't really have that at all last year to contend with. So
There's 3 things he does that as a Steeler fan I love. I'm going to talk about them first, and then I'd like to take a minute to talk about his really awesome touchdown pass. But it takes me a minute to work up to that, so I need to say some bad things. So the things that he does that I love, and he did them all in this game, is 1, he runs backwards and throws loft passes off of his back foot. Usually he's pretty smart about throwing those out of bounds, but I'm fine with all that. I love any quarterback that is running backwards, throwing off their back foot, no matter how strong their arm is. I don't care. Like, if I'm watching the other team play defense, I'm out of my seat at this point, waiting for that ball to come down because I'm thrilled about it. He definitely still does that. He throws the ball at many arm angles, and sometimes it works really well for him, and we'll cover that in a moment. And sometimes I think it doesn't. And sometimes when that pass rush is coming up the middle and he's trying to zip some slant into the middle of the field, he zips it a little high. He just a little too much on it, and there's deflections and there's stuff, and this is opportunities for safeties to get interceptions. I love seeing that. I love seeing Lamar kind of really zinging those middle passes. It usually works out for him. That's probably the least bad thing he does, but I'd say like a couple times a game, like interceptable balls there. And the final one, and I've only noticed it the last 2 weeks specifically, unblocked blitzers. He likes to try to give these little touch passes right past him. And in the last 2 weeks, he's basically thrown them into the hands of the oncoming rusher both times. Very catchable pick six opportunities that people that are watching the tape, I would say now, are going to be like trying to catch those passes. And I love that. Oh, that felt really good. So let's talk about that touchdown, because that's all going to happen against the Steelers. So that's like 14 points and 3 turnovers that I just described to you that are going to happen in 2 weeks. So this is pretty cool that I can project.
He'll have more turnovers in one game than he has all year so far.
Yeah, it'll be much more like his rookie year, you know.
Yeah. It'll be just like all the awesome quarterbacks the Steelers have faced this year.
Yes, exactly. I'm glad that he will look like Jeff Driscoll. We agree. So it's good that we both understand each other that way. So let's talk about this touchdown pass to Nick Boyle, because even when Lamar has a bad game, he just like adds to this highlight reel that you're gonna play it as your screensaver for the rest of your life. So he gets rushed. The play breaks down as usual with this crap offensive line that you guys are fielding now, and he rolls out to the right, and one of the defensive linemen, maybe it was Barnett or something, follows him out there, and he gives him this little like shimmy, and then he just sidearms it, like total sidearm, to Nick Boyle, who was rolling out to block and then just like slid off the block and is standing at the 3 and just like strolls in for a touchdown. And it was just like, it was so slick that I don't even think you rewatch it as an Eagles defense. You're just like, we can't learn from that. Yeah. Like those plays, you don't even learn from them. You just accept that they exist in space-time, and you try to move on and hope they don't happen again, because you're not going to make the Super Bowl. So you're like, okay, we're done with that stuff for the year.
I mean, there's probably, off the top of my head, there's 3 other quarterbacks in the league that can do that, between like the shiftiness, mobility, and like making that throw. And it's like Kyler, Mahomes, and Russ, and that's probably it. Maybe Rodgers. We don't see his mobility much anymore, but
so that was really fun, in a game in which I wasn't particularly impressed with Lamar's play. And over the last few weeks, if I'm being honest, like, get ready next week, I'm going to tell you, like, I'm not as intimidated by Lamar as I was in week 1. Like, I think the Steelers have a chance of defending him. They might score 40, I don't know, but I like really believe the Steelers, even without Devin Bush, maybe can actually do something here. Still, plays like that just happening like every week. So congratulations for that. That must have felt pretty good. I enjoyed watching it, and I was trying to hope they would lose, so it was a pretty cool play.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same story, same music, different sheet. The Ravens scored 30 points in this game, and we're talking about the offense being wonky, and so it's a luxury, but it's something they need to address if they're going to make a deep run in the playoffs, because everything kind of tightens up a little bit and windows get smaller, and Lamar still doesn't have a playoff win. So
Yeah, I mean it's 30, but I mean if you like are really watching the games, there isn't like I feel like every week last year they were doing a 9 or 10 minute drive, just running the
yes,
ball every
the
time, and they
run
were
game
doing
has not been as
it's
effective. If you look at
they
like the yards per carry every week for the
and
running
they're
backs, like not only are the carries down for those guys, but also it's like 3 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry, sometimes like 2 yards a carry. Whereas last year it was like Mark Ingram, 25 carries, 6 yards a carry, like they were just gashing people.
and
Um,
I think this is unlikely, but I think it's not actually completely different from the Browns, where like when they're winning, they're getting these timely turnovers, teams are making bad decisions, they get all these short fields and they convert like all of them to touchdowns. It happened again this game. The Eagles missed a 3rd and 22 that somehow Hightower ran wide open and Wentz just like threw it to him and he dropped it. Would have been a 50-yard completion on the first drive. Instead, they
yeah,
punt. The Ravens score a touchdown from decent field position. Then they fumble on the Elliott force. The next drive, it's 14-0. Like, soon a team is going to actually play well, and you're not going to just be up 14-0 in the first quarter. Like,
yeah,
and then we'll see what happens. And you know, maybe this is a good segue. Shall we segue?
sure,
So we segue to a team, the Browns, that had been getting a lot of opportunistic turnovers and scoring a lot of points. They were the number one scoring offense in the league coming into this game. And the Steelers, um, wow, did they trounce? They trounced them 38-7. They put the hurting on this Browns team in every possible facet of the game. Even special teams, they were deliberately not kicking touchbacks and just continuously tackling Peoples Jones like for the 20. Like, I mean, it was just a clinic. Um, you probably think that if I'm going to sum up this game, I'm going to go straight to the Minka interception, which was so glorious, but I'm not. I'm going to take you to about a few seconds before halftime. Baker Mayfield and the Browns have the ball. Baker rolls out. Bud Dupree breaks through the line and he wraps Baker up, but Baker stays on his feet. So Bud Dupree falls to the ground with Baker's legs in his arms, and Baker is kind of wobbling but maintaining his feet, looking down the field. Cam Hayward breaks through the line and at full speed delivers the cleanest, most ruthless hit that you'll ever see a defensive tackle deliver on a quarterback with broken ribs. Like, it was horrific for poor Baker Mayfield. Best part, Baker falls in a heap onto his left elbow. Jim Nantz says, well, the injury's on the right side. Tony Romo's response, I think that hurts everywhere, Jim. And that's basically what this game was for the Browns. It hurt everywhere. Um, what did you learn? What did you learn from these AFC North teams, Joey?
uh, I I don't know how much we learned definitively. Um, the Browns are still 4-2, and I think that until pretty late in the game, this was actually like still a contest. Like the final score was not quite indicative. I think the turning point of the game, so there was about 4 minutes left in the third quarter, and the Browns got stopped on a 4th and 1. And yeah, they had started moving the ball a little better at the end of the half. And, if they get some points there, it's either 24-10 or 24-14. But instead, they turned that into the drive where we had the Claypool run for a touchdown, and it's 31-7, and then the game's over. So I think the game wasn't quite over until then, even as dominant as the Steelers were in the first half. It was more the Browns shooting themselves in the foot. The pick six was just an inexcusable throw by Baker, and then you're down 10-0 in the blink of an eye. And I don't know, like I wasn't super. I don't think the Steelers' offense did anything like spectacular. I don't know. I'm still not overly impressed by Ben. He's been better than any quarterback they had taking snaps last season, obviously.
Well, the throw that he lofted to Mapletron to set up the touchdown that made it 17-0 was pretty
the
nice.
bomb, yeah, the big one where
Terrence Mitchell had nice coverage.
Claypool brought it in with one hand. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, that was a nice throw, but like at the end of the first quarter, he was like 4 of 10 for 37 yards, and they were up like 10-0, and so like.
Yeah, I actually I thought that the Browns' defensive front played really well early in the game. They actually held up pretty well until that 17-0, that touchdown, that big play to Mapletron. I was impressed with them. I did track. Maybe this is a good time to talk Myles Garrett tracker. He was switching between drives, left side to right side, so he didn't stay on Alejandro Villanueva, which even though he tends to own him, makes sense that you would go to the guy that hasn't started before this year and Chukwuma Okorafor. I think that if you're talking about a normal defensive player, you say, good game. He had 1 sack. It was a really nice sack. He spin moved inside on a Okorafor, and he split a double team that Kevin Dotson tried to apply, and then he bullied Connor, who tried to. It
was like a second chance sack, kind of. It was like an extended, yeah.
But he did beat 2 linemen, and then the running back tried to help. So it was a good win. Like I'm trying to be honest here. Like that was a good win for Myles, and that's the only time I saw him. He got benched with all the other starters at the fourth quarter, but like he really wasn't particularly effective. And when he was against Alejandro, I didn't notice a lot of double teams. And when he was against Okorafor, I would say it was maybe half. Like they definitely helped on him, which makes sense. He has like 7 sacks, and the rest of the Browns, the most they have is 2. So he's only one you have to guard, so you might as well help. So 1 good play, that's great for a normal player, not great for a defensive player of the year. So I count this one as a win for the Steelers. And the game script played exactly to what we said the Steelers could really use, which is get a lead and then take the Browns out of their normal offense. So I think, obviously, best case scenario for the Steelers here, they're not 31 points better than the Browns. Like, they just were on Sunday.
Right.
However, if there's one thing that is now indisputable, it's the quality of the Steelers' defensive front. I don't care if the Browns were minus Teller, who was like their highest graded lineman. They're all really good. Their whole offensive line is excellent, and the Steelers owned them. They owned them from every position. Bud Dupree had 2 sacks. Tuitt was wrecking stuff up the middle. Like, everyone was awesome. They're a threat. I don't care how good your offensive line is. Like, the Steelers are plus in that matchup every week from here on out. So that's awesome. It's very therapeutic to see that happen because I knew it, but they just didn't. They hadn't played the teams maybe yet. But this Browns offensive front is as good as anyone's, and now we know. Now we know that the Steelers defensive front, we've caught lightning in a bottle this year, folks, and it is going to be fun to watch.
Are we sure the Browns are good?
I'm sure their offensive line is good. Yeah, I am.
Missing their what? Okay, Okay.
Just Teller. They're missing Teller. They're missing 1 of 5 guys that are basically playing at a Pro Bowl level. They had, up till this week, both of their tackles were in the top 20 in pass defense. Like, they're great.
I'm just gonna get sick. Listen to this.
I mean, like, I'm sorry, the Browns' offensive line is better than yours by like a million. Like,
I mean, I don't know if it's by a million.
Any one of their players should start on your team.
Okay. Well,
Any
they
one of
lost
them.
38-6 to our team, so
Yeah, it was bad. They probably clanked an extra point or whatever. Like, they're clearly not in the same
intimidation.
class. Here's the thing though. I want Browns fans to know this because this was really fun. It was a really fun win. And that doesn't sound good to you right now, but here's why it's important. In a normal year, it would be a necessary result. But this week, it was a satisfying result because your team is better. Your team is better. So this was really fun for me because it was against what I believe is a worthy adversary. Like, I will not be thinking we're going to win by 30 in week 17. Like, I think the Browns team is pretty good. I think Baker Mayfield has some limitations, and he's going to have to learn to play within them. He's got a playmaker's mentality, and maybe he goes a little bit outside himself sometimes. But I honestly think this team is good. Their offense is going to get back rolling again, um, and defensively as they get healthier and maybe figure out a way to get a pass rush that isn't just Myles Garrett. Like, I think we'll talk about it more, but this team's good, and it's much better than the result of this Sunday's game, which is why I enjoyed it so much. The Steelers played, in my opinion, a good team. Trounced them. Awesome. That's why we're drinking Kentucky Breakfast Stout from 2016. Oh, mm-mm-mm. Great stuff. Um, that's mostly what I got. Mapletron was good. James Washington embarrassed Denzel Ward on a double move, which was sweet. Just good, solid life in the fast lane. Here's some other good news for Browns fans. Currently, Baker Mayfield and Ben Roethlisberger are tied for the franchise record in wins in Browns Stadium, and pretty certain that Baker Mayfield is going to take the lead. So you will have a player on your team be the franchise record holder for wins at your own stadium, which is just not been the case for years now. So congratulations, that's coming. And Ben had to just take it out on you one more time, but it was in Pittsburgh. Too bad, too. How great would it have been? 11 wins apiece if this week they played in Cleveland. Ah, that would have been so sweet. But they didn't. Run game's good. That's the last thing I'll say. James Conner had a really nice game. I'm always tempted to say that when he's healthy, he's legitimately a good back. Maybe he's not Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt, but he's good. He's a good back. We don't need anyone better to be able to be a Super Bowl contender. There's a statistic. This is dangerous here when you get me into these numbers, but it's called run success rate. And basically it means that if you get 40% of the yards you need on first down, 60% on second down, or 100% on third or fourth down, that's a successful run. So the Steelers and James Conner was successful on 14 of his 20 runs this week. So pretty good. Browns run defense isn't anything to it's not the same as accomplishing that against like the Browns offensive line, which I celebrate, but it was good. It was a good running performance from James Conner, and I think he's gotten 100 yards in like 4 of their 5 games now. So they're a sneaky, effective running team. Pew, 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 pew. AFC North leaders, domination station, crushing it. We're so good. God, we're so much better than everybody.
Yep.
Should we move on to a team that's not better than, I don't know, anybody?
I mean, they're decent. They're just not good at not losing games yet.
Yeah.
As evidenced by this past Sunday. So the Bengals went into Indianapolis. The Colts spotted them 21 points and then just proceeded to take them behind the woodshed. Phillip Rivers must have been like dropping acid and had like a flashback to 7 years ago when he was a Pro Bowl quarterback and just laid what's left of his dick on the table and threw for like 270 yards in the first half. And so the Bengals were up 21-0. I think in the first quarter
it was
21-0.
Yeah.
And at halftime, it was 24-21 Bengals. And it's basically all downhill from there.
Here's what makes me nervous. Like, they're not a great team. They're my team. I adopted the Bengals, and I'm cheering for them. And there's some good stuff. There's some good stuff to be had here. It doesn't feel like it. That's part of what's good, though,
There
right? Like,
certainly is.
you expectations are rise. But here's the thing, dude. Here's the stuff that happened that put them to a 21-0 lead, and tell me how you lose this game. So, on the first drive, Colts tight end Nick Boyle fumbles
Jack
without
Doyle.
being touched. Jack Doyle, whatever. Somebody.
Nick Boyle's a Raven.
Oh, that's yours. Yeah. You know what? You don't get a name when you fumble without being touched. That's stuff that my 2-year-old daughter does when I give her a ball. She just drops it. Same deal, right? I could use your contract in this household. Esme, get a job. Fumbles, not even touched. Bengals recover. Bam, 7-0. You haven't done anything to earn any points yet. Then they get the ball back after a stand, and they show a little bit of guts. Zach Taylor goes for it on 4th and 1 from the 2-yard line. He doesn't want a 10-0 lead, and he's rewarded. Joe Burrow sneaks in for a touchdown, 14-0. Then the Bengals get the ball back. On 3rd and 9, the Colts go all Steelers, and Joe Burrow throws like, what was it? A 50-yard pass or something?
I just wrote bomb with 2 B's at the
Yeah.
end.
And then, like, that got him into, like, the 5-yard line or something,
Mixon
and bam.
finished it off.
Yeah, with a tough, that was a sweet run. You got to love Mixon. Always breaks that first tackle. Always breaks that first tackle. So it's 21-0. And then after that, something else happened. Oh, was it the challenge? Yeah, Indy challenges a play on their next drive, and it doesn't get accepted. And it was a great challenge. Like, the replay was very clear cut. Like, it was an awesome toe tap by Higgins. They don't give it to him. The Bengals get that much more help. But then Rivers throws like a 50-yard TD 4 plays later, and then it's on, right? Like, everything was happening for them. Everything. And they just couldn't win. So, Joey, if you can have all that happen and go out to a 21-0 victory. I mean, we talked about the Steeler game being over because one thing happened, right? Like, they got the one turnover and it was 10-0, and then you're like, well, Browns are fucked now. Like, dude, all this stuff happens, and they can't win. So what's it take? What does it take for them to win?
The defense just has to be better. I really think the Bengals offense is pretty good. And Burrow's getting more comfortable with all the guys. AJ Green led the team in receptions this week, which, like, whoa, look out. If AJ Green gets involved, like Boyd and Higgins were both all over the place. Like, it's a fun little offense.
Should be noted, though, every time a new Bengals receiver does really well, another new Bengals receiver asks for a trade. And this week it was John Ross.
Well, he has like 2 catches all year or some shit like that. So
the scales of justice remain balanced. Someone's always succeeding that's new. Someone new is always asking for a trade.
He'll go be a star in Seattle. Go back home.
Maybe. That would make sense.
But yeah, I mean, the defense just wasn't good enough to hang on once the Colts were like really forced into passing, because the Colts don't want to do that. The Colts are one of these teams, they want to be run first. They want to play clock control football and pound you with Taylor and Hines and Mack when he's healthy.
That was working.
Yeah.
The few points in the game where it was close, Jonathan Taylor was running well.
So, I mean, the Bengals forced the Colts into playing left-handed, and then the Colts just beat them down playing left-handed because of the shortcomings in the secondary, basically.
Yeah,
Jesse Bates
that's
had a nice interception.
Dude, how sweet was that interception?
Yeah,
So I don't
sick.
remember what the route is, but if you start in the middle and you sort of, it's like a post, but towards the sideline instead of towards the middle.
Like a flag route.
Yeah, and it was a really clever route because I think, and this is dangerous, again, very dangerous here, people. I think the Bengals were running cover three, which means one of the corners, William Jackson, was supposed to sink all the way back as a deep coverage, but the receiver had him beat. Like he was getting to that outside flag before Jackson could sink. So it was a very clever route. It was well done. Too bad Jesse Bates is going to the Pro Bowl this year, people. He's awesome. He caught that. He caught it in traffic. It was great high point. Really nice play from Jesse Bates, which was cool because we like to track the players we like. And if you were on the Darius Phillips tracker this week, wasn't quite as awesome. He may or may not have been responsible for the second Colts touchdown. It was an out route. And it looked kind of like zone and like basically the Steelers have done this like 4 times. So I always read articles about it. Like 2 guys followed a guy into the middle. No one went to the outside. So it was a classic wide open TD. And then you look at Darius Phillips, who's the closest guy, and he's got his arms out. He's like, oh, what? It's great. Great way to take responsibility off yourself. Like, what did you do? And the camera can't see who he's looking at. So, so I don't know. I don't know if that was his fault or not. But then later in the game, um, Phillips got totally beat, and Philip Rivers overthrew. I don't even know who it was, but he overthrew somebody. Like it was in the fourth quarter. It was going to be an easy 60-yard touchdown. He was like 5 yards ahead of Phillips, and Phillips. The only thing he did right is that most corners, when that pass is incomplete, will do the arms crossed like incomplete,
Yeah.
like they did something right
Yeah.
besides just like breathe in the farts of the guy that was 5 yards ahead of him about to score a touchdown. He at least didn't do that. He just turned around and was like, "My God." So, not Darius Phillips' best day, but he'll be back. Short-term memory. Um, I'm just nervous here because I didn't expect the Bengals to win this game, but you go to another team's stadium and a good team, and you get out to that kind of lead, and you don't hold it. I'm just like I just don't know what it's gonna take for them to win. Like they play, and maybe if you want, we can segue to next week right now. Like
Yeah.
next week, they play the Browns, right? This before the season was a game that we had highlighted. They're at home, division game. This is like a key game. Are you going to compete in the division? They've already seen the Browns, so this will be everybody has seen them. This will be the first repeat. It's not as scary. It's not as different. You know this team now. Are they going to be able to compete? Like could they get out to a 20-point lead and blow it? Because the Browns are a decent team. They can run the ball. They can run the play action. They got talent at the skill positions. Like, what does it take for the Bengals to win? You have no answer.
No, the defense has to be better, um, and it's difficult for them because the Achilles heel of the defense is the secondary, seemingly, and I mean, really, the whole thing, the whole defense is
Yeah.
an Achilles heel. Like,
I'm picturing a Gary Larson comic where the whole defense is like a big foot. Like it's the whole.
yeah,
I mean, they don't have DJ Reader anymore. He was like the key to them being even sort of acceptable against the run. I was looking for Geno Atkins, who supposedly has been active, but I like had trouble finding him on the field. I think he's like on a snap count. I don't know. I didn't even notice him in the game. Um, they have problems. Like they got real problems on defense. I actually think the secondary is where their best players are. Jesse Bates is playing well. I think that like William Jackson and Darius Phillips have gotten beat, but I think they're like competing.
yeah,
I think that the linebackers.
oof,
I don't know. I don't know if I like what's going on there. I don't know if I like what's going on there. And the defensive line is it's hurt by injuries. Like Dunlap got benched, and then they had to put him back in because Sam Hubbard is hurt. Carl Lawson's finally started. Carl Lawson's a nice little story. He's getting a lot of pressure on the quarterback. You just don't really notice it. Yeah.
yeah,
But he's doing well. They're in trouble, man. They're in trouble. They really had a moment unfortunately, it was like the first 3 weeks where you really felt the progress. And I kind of feel like, I hate saying this, but I kind of feel like we've seen the kind of the peak of what we can expect out of this team, at least for the next, at least like month, like before they take another step. Like against the Browns specifically, I think that for the offense, because the defense stinks, right? So it's basically like they don't have DJ Reader, so I guess they have to either get an early lead like the Steelers, right? They got to get a pick six, they got to do some crazy stuff, return a kick for a touchdown, or hope Kareem Hunt misses the team bus. Like maybe he just misses the bus. You just have to defend Ernest Johnson. That's like how I see the defense doing well. You think we could get a missed bus situation?
Yeah.
COVID
I
test?
mean,
Positive
so
COVID test?
in week 2, when they played, the Browns won by 5 points. And that was the game that was like the realization of Chubb and Hunt together sharing carries and like really dominating a game. Obviously Chubb's gone. But I mean, I think that the offense, especially with Cleveland's inefficiencies, Dean asked. Sorry, Dean distracted me. He said, "Are you guys going to talk about how Lamar has COVID? Get out of here." The Ravens
Yes.
have a bye this week, anyways. 2 weeks, and he'll be back for the Steelers, rested. Um, the big flaw in Cleveland's defense is their secondary outside of Denzel Ward. Like Terrence Mitchell, he's a solid player, but we just watched him get abused by a rookie wide receiver. And the back end, oof, holy cow. Like Sendejo and whoever else you want to put back there with Sendejo.
Yeah, it's going to be red wine until that Harrison dude, who is actually pretty good,
Yeah.
gets back. Yeah, that's not good. You got to go deep, and Cincinnati struggled to go deep. I definitely noted that as you just have to. So Cincinnati's basically success has come on these middle passes, like middle depth, 10 to 17 yards in the middle of the field, and ironically, that's where Joe Burrow threw his interception with a minute left in the game. Like
Yeah.
you can't go back to the well every single time. Eventually, it just gets jumped. Players like Mitchell and Ward love to jump routes. Like they will jump those routes. Like he will throw interceptions in this game if he doesn't mix it up. So you need to do things, slow down the pass rush because their offensive line stinks. So you need wide receiver screens, bubble screens to mix in, whatever. Even if you're not good at them, you got to run like 2 or 3 of them. And you have to push the ball down the field. Like you just have to.
Yeah, they've got the guys to do it. I mean, Higgins, AJ. If AJ Green is like, if you get AJ Green re-engaged, like that changes this offense big time.
Yeah, I haven't seen him catch a deep ball yet. He caught passes in this game and he showed his hands and his body control, but it was almost all these like slant route kind of situations, which again, like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, like, shame on me. That's the correct quote, George Bush, okay?
If only they had like a speed guy on their roster that they could use to like stretch, like a guy that just all he wants is to be involved.
Yeah, the key is for that guy to A, not drop the ball,
Yeah.
and B, not get hurt by pulling his hamstring 1 out of every 2 times he runs more than 30 yards. So that's something that we'll look at in the draft next year. And maybe the 6th round pick they get when they trade John Ross will be where they find the diamond in the rough there.
Hey, Antonio Brown was the 6th round pick.
He sure was.
Let's go.
If you can name any other good wide receiver that was drafted in the 6th round, got my watch out here. Yeah.
All it takes is one.
All it takes is one. It's trouble. Also, in that matchup where they lost by 5 points, Joe Burrow threw the ball 61 times. I am willing to project that is not your recipe for victory, right? Like,
it's only his second career start.
Yeah, I just and
So
it's just not the way they want to win the game, right? So they
right.
held it to 5, but they don't want to use that game script as their like recipe, right? Um, so they showed they can compete, but they have to compete differently this week. So we'll see. I will probably be picking the Browns.
Bovada has it. Cleveland -3.5.
Yeah. Yes. I think the
They
Browns
gave you
like,
that. They're giving you that extra half point.
dude, I don't
That's
care
what it
about
is.
I don't do math like, oh, 3 versus 3.5. Like in my mind, this game is like a 10 to 14 point game. Like I think Cleveland comes back with a vengeance. I think the offensive line reminds everybody what they're about. And I think, like, dude, they ran for 300 yards against Dallas. Do you know how many of those Chubb accounted for? 40. 40. They ran for however many yards the next week. It was like 160, whatever. Like, he was not in the game. Like, they are a good running team without Nick Chubb. The Steelers are a remarkable run defense. The Cincinnati Bengals are not. Like, they're going to be fine. Like, they're going to be fine. And they're going to win by a bunch. Like, here's your score. I'm going to come over right now. 38-17. And I
Wow.
love, yeah, it's going to be bad
Wow.
in
That sure
Cincinnati.
makes the Steelers look really good. I'm gonna go. Joey B gets his first AFC North win. 34-31.
Dude, that'll be awesome. I'll be
Go
cheering for Joey
Bengals.
B. I'll be
Rawr.
I'll be cheering for wow, wow. Yeah. We we gotta incorporate some really poor sound effects more often. That's a good idea. Um, that's great radio. Yeah, I just don't. I think, dude, I think this is a revenge situation, but I'm hoping you're right. The Bengals, the skill players are really good for the Bengals, so the more they can spread around all of them, except for Ross because he's gonna get traded. Um, then it's good. So that's a Sunday at 1 o'clock. That's a Sunday 1 o'clock game, and there's only one other AFC North game this week. Luckily for you guys, we've
It's a
condensed all of our
doozy.
AFC North passion into two great games, right? We got one division rivalry. We've got Ohio v. Ohio. You think Baker Mayfield, with all this stuff about his limitations, wants to go into Cincinnati with their turd Skyline chili and get outplayed by a rookie? Dude, he doesn't want that. He's Baker Mayfield. He's got commercials. Joe Burrow just has a picture with him smoking a cigar. Nobody cares about that. That's one game. Then our next game is literally the two best teams in the AFC by everything that matters, your record, playing against each other. The Steelers play the Titans. The Titans can only run away so many times. They picked up an L in the real column by basically forfeiting to the Steelers by administering COVID injections to themselves earlier in the year, but now they're stuck. They have no more places to run, no more places to hide. 1 p.m. Sunday, 5-0 Steelers, 6-0 Titans, grudge match. What do you think?
I think it's going to be really good. I think Derrick Henry is starting to like really get on his roll, and that's got to be scary. And I think Ryan Tannehill is good. I think I think he's a good quarterback, like an above average quarterback, maybe. Um, Mike Vrabel. This is a fun team to root for. Even though they beat the Ravens in the playoffs last year, like I should dislike them. Uh,
Not more than the Steelers, though.
oh, of course not more than the Steelers, but normally I wouldn't be.
Obviously.
They're great. I I mean Vrabel's awesome. The whole manipulating the clock with the loopholes thing that he does. Um, pro, dare I say he's a better coach already than Mike Tomlin?
No, I mean, you can
As
say
I
it.
mean, as far as like in-game strategy goes, like Mike Tomlin doesn't
Oh,
really do anything.
yeah, that's true. But but that's not all the way fair. That's
But
not
you
all the
know
way
what
fair.
Mike Vrabel does? Blink, pussy.
Yeah, I'm I'm nervous, but
Yeah.
like excited because to me, like the Steelers proved last week that they are at least deserved of this test. Like they are a great run defense, and Tractor Cedo stands in their way, and he is a unique guy. So you can't say based on anything they've done that they're definitively ready for him because he's just so hard to tackle, especially when he gets ahead of steam. They'll have a new middle linebacker factoring into things. It'll be Robert Spillane, number 41.
Oof.
You'll see him. Um, if you're worried, you should be because Devin Bush played from a linebacker position, right? A position that is getting shrunken in today's NFL with all these spread out offenses, right? He played 100% of the Steelers' defensive snaps up to the point he got injured. So if the Steelers were on defense, let me just reiterate, he was on the field and he was relaying the defensive play call to the rest of the people. Now, that's the least of our concerns. One, because Vince Williams is awesome at that. And two, because apparently Robert Spillane is wicked smart because when he came in the game, they just let him do it and he was fine. So I am cautiously optimistic about Spillane. And what that means is not that he's as good as Devin Bush, but the rest of their defense is so good. He doesn't have to be an all pro for this defense to work. He just has to do his assignment. His assignment might be to get run over by Tractor Cedo, but as long as he falls down as he runs the lane over, it's fine. On the other side of things, Taylor Lewan is by far Tennessee's best offensive lineman. He's their left tackle. That means on the left side of the offense, he's the most outside guy, and that means that he would have been assigned Bud Dupree. And if you're thinking, ooh, that's great, you're right, because Bud Dupree is slaying it. 2 more sacks last week, still killing it in the run game. And Steelers have to be thinking, we need to get behind the line of scrimmage, break these things up before Tractor Cedo gets ahead of steam. And that's what they do, right? The outside linebackers crash when they're unblocked across the line really fast, trip them up. And the interior guys are really strong. Look, Tractor Ceto's big. Cam Hayward can tackle him. I don't care. I don't care. Like, if they meet, Cam Hayward will tackle him, like, almost every time. So that's not a concern. It just has to happen behind the line of scrimmage before he gets going too fast. Because if he gets going really fast, well, we've all seen it. We saw what he did to Josh Norman. We saw what he does running. He just runs faster than people too, apparently.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, 2 weeks in a row, we've seen like the thunder and the lightning from Derrick Henry. It's like,
yeah.
holy shit.
So, I mean, it's going to be a big deal. I mean, like, if you think, Miles Sanders, if you don't do right, can break a touchdown on you. This is like not even, I shouldn't have even said Miles Sanders. They're like so different. But the point is, like if you make a
Dean's in your
mistake,
head.
like, well, it's right. But Miles Sanders is good, right? So we
Yeah.
made a mistake and he ran for a big touchdown. And you guys did it too. And Derrick Henry is like that plus 1,000,000,000 of all the traits and positivity. He's faster, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's better in every way except for maybe route running. Like, who cares? So that's a big deal. And it's obviously going to be, I would say now, we are officially repeating Saquon Barkley game script. We are saying you are the problem and we must solve it. And that makes me nervous because guess who else is a problem? Problem number 2, A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown. Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith, I think you just got to you just let him beat you. Like, if that's the way it has to be, that's the way it has to be. But A.J. Brown is legit and in a lot of similar ways as Tractor Cedo, Derrick Henry. because if he gets a head of steam going, he can run you over and outrun you and do all those physical things that are tricky. So the Steelers very much improved in third down defense and tight coverage last week against the Browns, and the Browns have talented wide receivers. So hopefully, schematically, similar approach, because you just don't want this guy getting ahead of steam because he'll break tackles, and the Steelers don't want to be giving up big plays. So good luck.
Yeah, it's
Because
going to be a big week for secondary communication. Just like last week, Stefanski likes to do the rolling out and the play action, but like the Titans have almost mastered like the play action just because of the threat that Derrick Henry is. I mean, yeah, I mean they pose a lot of problems, and we didn't even really talk about their D line is really good.
yeah, but their defense overall stinks. They just give up 30 points to everybody except for the Bills, and the Bills didn't even know they were playing them. So they honestly they have some talent, but I'm not concerned. In my opinion, Steelers are getting Deontay back. Expect 30 points.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to be sad if they don't have it. I'm not drinking Kentucky Breakfast Stout 2016 if they don't score 30 points. They're just not they have talent. Jadeveon Clowney, Jeffrey Simmons, they've got some guys but they're not putting it together. They gave up 30 points to Houston.
That's a division game.
They gave it up to Jacksonville.
Division game.
I don't give a shit. Jacksonville stinks.
You know anything can happen in a division game.
Well, that's the thing, Joey. I know one thing always happens, and it's that they give up 30 points when a team can actually prepare to play them. They're just not that good.
Okay.
They've given up 30. I think they've played 6 games. They've given up 30 points in 4 of them. Why am I scared?
All right.
No, I don't know. I will say that they do have turnover capability. They've got 5 different guys that have interceptions. Malcolm Butler's on the team of Super Bowl fame. He's got 2 interceptions. And they don't turn the ball over much. I think Tannehill has thrown 1, and I don't know that they've lost a fumble. So the Steelers have been on a nice little streak of not turning the ball over. Their defense turns the ball over a lot. So it's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky to win the turnover battle. And I think if the Steelers play sloppy, that's how they could lose this game. Because I think the offense should move the ball and they should score a lot. But if they somehow give the Titans a few short fields and do some things silly, that's where you get your problems. And it could happen because Tennessee protects the ball really well. And they do, even though they give up 1 million points, they do get those turnovers. So we'll see. I get it. They do have talent on the defense, Joey. I looked at it, but they just keep giving up all these crazy points to teams that aren't good. I don't care if it's a division game, dude. Just who gave up 30 points to Cincinnati? Right? I just don't care. Dude, 30.
Some teams score 30 points a game, and so 30 points is nothing.
Yeah, the Steelers don't give up 30 points, and they don't score 30 points either. So what's the line?
You're going to be really upset. Are you prepared to be upset?
I think I might know what it is. Isn't it Steelers are favored?
Right before the podcast started, it was Pittsburgh +1.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great. I thought it was Pittsburgh -2.5. And I was like, dang, because I don't want the Steelers.
Disrespect. You don't feel disrespected?
It's in Tennessee. I want the home team to be
fans anywhere. All the 10,000 fans in Tennessee.
Dude, they're still using it. Vegas is still doing that stuff. They still give them a couple points. And I actually don't know if Tennessee will have any fans, but I would rather be the underdog in this game. Good. And you know what, too? I hope the Steelers beat them by 25 because this bullshit with COVID where they had to take their bye week in week 4, Punish these bastards. Do not allow them to ruin your bye week and then beat you. I want a big victory. And you know what? I'm expecting it. Tractor Cedo will do something crazy, or AJ Brown, one of the two. But I'm telling you, this defense is stepping up, man. This defense is great. They've stepped up to every challenge, every good player. You don't think there's been many, but there have. Saquon, the Browns, like they're ready. This run defense. Alu is playing at a Pro Bowl level, and Tuitt is an All-Pro level. Cam Hayward might be the worst defensive lineman on this team right now. Do you realize what that means? It means you're fucked, Joey. In 2 weeks, you're fucked.
Yeah. It means that the 72 Dolphins need to pack their fucking bags and go home, I guess.
Nah, the Steelers will lose. Who's the worst team they have left on their schedule? They'll lose to Cincinnati.
The Redskins. Have they played them yet?
No.
There you go.
Yeah, they'll lose to the Redskins. Yeah, they won't go undefeated. That's not going to happen. Here's your final score right here. 32-16.
All right. It's just blowout city. Why watch an AFC North game this week? It's just a bunch of blowouts.
Because of the beauty of the game.
32-16. God dang.
Because you want to see Chase Claypool get the obligatory jet sweep touchdown.
That's like a historic blowout for the Steelers. Legendary maybe blowout.
Like last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be more like 32-24, but it'll be 32-16 late in the third quarter. Probably be 32-12 late in the third quarter.
Just 4 field goals.
I don't know.
However you decide you want to get there.
Dude, with all the 2-point conversions and crazy stuff people try these days, like it could go any sort of way. You know that the Eagles didn't even try to kick an extra point in the game against the Ravens?
I mean, that's what happens when you're down 17-0. Like, it's all the analytics nerds.
Dude, those nerds are lame. So, we only had 2 games. Should we revisit our kind of expectations for the teams this year at all, or you want to roll with it?
I mean, yeah, we can talk about the division, kind of adjust our expectations if you'd like. We start at the bottom with Cincinnati. I expected Cincinnati to have some more wins by now, I think. I don't know. Burrow, except for like the Ravens game, I think Burrow has looked willing and able, I guess, to like accept the challenge of starting in the NFL. The Bengals are just, the defense is real bad, and they just haven't been able to put it together. They probably have like 3 or 4 games they should have won. They should have won against the Chargers. They should have won against the Eagles. They should have not blown a 3-score lead to the Colts. Like, so they're there. They're knocking on the door of winning, kind of a la how the Browns have been occasionally over the last like 10 years, where they have one good year and then suck a bunch historically. I feel like they're establishing that they have something to build on finally. So, good for them.
I had projected them to have exactly the number of wins they have right now because they beat the Jaguars, which was the first game I expected them to be favored, and that was the case. So here is what I think their revised, and not really revised, just the same goals, right? 1, win a division game. And that's why this Browns game was a key game, right? Because this is going to be the closest in terms of projections that they have for the rest of the year, because they're not going to be projected to play the Steelers and Ravens close, even though they'll probably beat the Steelers. So, win a division game. Establish an offensive identity. Show Burrow you're committed. Help him get better. Get something going that's structured, because quarterbacks that get good in for a long time in the NFL, they do it because they have an offense that they learn so well that they can do anything in it and they can be creative in it, right? Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, even a guy like Lamar Jackson, it's happening fast because they built the offense for him, right? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
he can do the things he's really good at within it, right? So that I think they need to do. Here's the one that's going to surprise you. Have a winning streak. I projected Cincinnati to go 5-11 this year. So, starting November 22nd, here is a 4-game stretch. Washington football team, New York Giants, Miami Dolphins, Dallas Cowboys, all in a row. You need to win 2 of those games at least in a row. And at the beginning of the year, I believe I projected them to beat the Potatoes, the Dolphins, and the Giants, which would be a 3-game winning streak starting November 22nd. So that's where you get your sense of purpose and identity. You keep Joe committed to the franchise. And I think that that's, you got to keep people's morale up, and that's your big chance. So around Thanksgiving, look for the Bengals to make a push. And then they only have 4 scouts. So start scouting offensive line with that top 10 pick. You're going to get one of the top few of them.
Yeah.
And you sure as heck need one. So get the best offensive lineman you can. Start right now. Start right now. Be watching all that college film, all 4 of you. That's what I think the Bengals need to do from the bottom of their division.
Yeah. We can even make it 5 games. Monday night, December 21st, they host the Pittsburgh Steelers. 5-game win streak.
December 21st?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the one after the Cowboys?
Sure is.
Well, I did say they'll probably beat them, so sure. That's another opportunity. You never know. I mean, that's a long time from now. They could be a lot better team. And the Steelers do lose stupid games.
Stranger things have happened.
I'm not telling you to put me on a milk carton. The odds are too high.
All right, move up in the division. 4-2 is the 3rd place team in the AFC North right now. The Browns. Unfortunately for the Browns, their 2 losses have both been absolute division drubbings. So I think it's safe. On paper, the gap is great between the top 2 teams in the division and the Browns. But in reality, probably not. I think both the games just got out of hand. You can say what you want about no preseason and week 1 and all of that. It's just how it goes sometimes in division games. The rest of their schedule is exceedingly easy. That's a common theme pretty much for the whole division. So their next 5 games, they have Cincinnati, obviously. Then they host the Raiders, so traveling west to east, 1 p.m. game. Then they host... Jesus, how many games do they have at home in a row? Then they host the Texans. That's winnable. Wow, yeah. Then they host the Eagles. Is this right?
The Steelers had 4 in a row.
3
the schedule's
games in a row.
Been mucked up.
And and then they go to Jacksonville in November before they have to play the Titans in Tennessee. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Raiders probably the hardest game in that stretch. You know, if they go 4-1, they're 8-3. You know, if they manage to beat the Raiders, who are playing the time zone hopping game, like 9-2, like entering December, like that's crazy.
It's not crazy, Joey. It's not crazy. I am saying this team needs to make the playoffs. They need to make the playoffs. They've shown they can play good football. Look, that Dallas win is going to look really lame as the season goes on, but it wasn't lame. They played Dallas at the height of whatever their crap powers were.
Yeah.
Like, that was a really good offense and a team that people thought was really good. And they went into Dallas and they smoked them. And here's the deal. I did the same sort of schedule analysis, but from a different angle. If the Browns can beat every team on the rest of their schedule that currently has one win or less, they will finish 10-6. 10-6. That means that they can lose to every team that's even shown an inkling of being decent. They can lose to the Raiders, they can lose to the Titans, and they can lose to the Ravens and Steelers again. And the rest of the teams on their schedule right now, 6 weeks in, one win or less. They don't have to be that good. Like, they don't. They do not have to be good to get to 10-6. I think they are pretty good. I think to prove it, there's two things that need to happen. They need to get a cohesive defensive identity. I feel like right now it's basically they have two star players in Denzel Ward and Myles Garrett. And those players, I mean, we talked about it last week. Garrett was being given credit for like 8 turnovers or something like that. It was crazy talk. So they need to figure out what their strengths are as a unit and just be more complementary to each other. Because if you can just focus on Garrett, teams will take that away and throw to the other side of the field from Ward. And they need to find Baker Mayfield's happy place. He's got a strong arm. He can be accurate, and he can be elusive in the pocket. But he's got a playmaking mentality that leads him to take chances that are maybe a little bit outside his current skill level compared to the people around him in the NFL. He could get away with it in college, not so much anymore. So Stefanski, and I think he's a good coach, he's got to help Baker make the type of reads that keep him within himself. And when he does, all the playmakers are all around him. They're all there. And then I think the Browns are a playoff team. I really do. And frankly, I think that if the Ravens or Steelers slip up, like, they could pass them just because of the schedule. Like, yeah. I mean, there's just nothing really for the Browns to be scared of. I mean, even the teams that have the wins, like the Browns can play with the Titans. They're very similarly structured. They can beat the Raiders and division. Anything can happen. You said it. Anything can happen. Yep. They did beat the Ravens last year. Like, they crushed them.
Smashed the Ravens last year. Yeah.
So the Browns expect to make the playoffs. I know this sounds weird. Expect it. Make the playoffs. Still the goal.
Yeah. 4-2. Extra playoff team this year. I mean, if that's not a sign. So,
right.
Moving on up in the division. 5-1.
Pittsburgh. Oh no, the Baltimore Ravens are next. God,
so I'm gonna come out and just say it, even though it's very reasonable to have expected them to lose to the Chiefs. The way that they've lost to the Chiefs and the way that the offense looks so far, this season's been disappointing. We got spoiled last year by the offense. We, as that's a collective Ravens fans, and this season's been kind of poopy. Even like the big blowout wins, it's like, oh well, you're like, yeah, I guess the offense looked I'm still holding out hope that, I mean, basically I think we have to find out against the Steelers. Like, you thought maybe we'd find out against the Chiefs. If the Ravens are just fucking around and trying out a bunch of stuff on offense and seeing how it goes, and they're going to revert back to their identity from last year, we're going to see it in week 8 when they play the Steelers. There's a bye week to prepare. Like, that's when it has to happen. There's looking up in the division at the Steelers, or even if they're tied with them at that point. Like, those are the games
looking up.
those are the games that really fucking matter. So that's it, and that'll tell us everything. So
Oh, I love that. Doesn't that get you fired
the
up?
run,
This is what's supposed to be.
I'm still in my like fog from the Eagles game, so not yet. I'm a
Dude,
big Titans fan this week, and then we'll go from there.
it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to me. Sorry. Oh, either way, it's for the division lead. No matter
Oh
what
yeah, yeah.
happens
Either
against
way,
the
it's a
Titans.
huge game.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we said in the beginning of the season, anything short of a Super Bowl is a disappointment for the Ravens, given their expectations coming into the season, and there's some things they still need to address. The trade deadline's like a month away, I think, just about, maybe a little less. It'll be interesting to see if they do anything reasonably. Their window right now is this year and 2 more, Lamar's rookie contract, before you have to back up the bank to Lamar's driveway and give the man his money. So, I mean, now's the time. Make the moves. That's it. The Ravens are 5-1, but it's kind of a disappointing 5-1 to me, which I understand is it comes from a privileged position. But especially since the Steelers are undefeated right now, it really feels disappointing.
Sure. And I agree with you. Like, the Ravens' goals have changed nothing. Win the division. They should not think anything about wild cards or anything like that.
No.
You might be a game back or whatever right now, but the Ravens should have no doubts like that they are favored and should be considered the favorite to win the division, win a playoff game. That is like wherever you finish this year, another first round exit from the playoffs. You don't want to see Baltimore in that situation. I've watched The Wire. I know what happens. And frankly, win the Super Bowl. Like, the Baltimore people in the franchise and on the team and fans should feel like that going into this season and right now, this is one of the few teams that can look all around and say, like, I don't care who we're playing. Like, we can beat them, and we should. Like, so win the Super Bowl. That is still very much a realistic franchise goal for this year to make it happen. And I'm saying this from a perspective of a Steelers defense guy. Baltimore's defense is playing great. Nothing needs to change. Wink is getting the pressure there. They may not always have it individually, but they manufacture it, and they have enough talent. And they're creating turnovers. They're doing awesome stuff. Defense just needs to stay the course. Yeah. Nothing needs to change. Offensively, they need to either reestablish the identity they had, or, and I think this is more likely than that, find the identity that protects the offensive line. And I think that the two things they can maybe do going forward to help is, one, start to distinguish the roles of the running backs. They're doing some weird stuff where they kind of just put everybody in and give everyone their chances. I don't know. Like, figure out who the best one is, get them in there, and do it. And secondly, expand the role of the wide receivers. So, frickin' Boykin, Hollywood, get it done, Get these people integrated into your scripted plays so that you can get your offense bigger and quicker timing routes and stuff. I think that way you can protect your offensive line a little better, but it's mostly the running back. Carve out the roles, figure it out.
Yeah. They can't keep this committee shit up. Like, they got to have a lead guy for the running backs, I think. And if it's not Ingram, that's okay. It's okay. If like you think
Yeah.
Dobbins is the guy, and every time he's been on the field, he's been electric. Then he's the guy, and make it happen. Get him all the experience you can before the playoffs. So,
Yeah, man. Steelers are very similar. Steelers are leading the division. I think that they, the only thing you say instead of win the Super Bowl, get to the Super Bowl. Maybe came into the year with a little more doubt. Ravens, but they're undefeated now. So getting to the playoffs, winning a game, this is all expectation. They need to sort out the secondary, which should be reasonable because they played so well last year. They need to keep Connor healthy to keep that running game okay. And they need to keep teams doubting who their best wide receiver is. Get Deontay the ball. Get Juju the ball. Keep Claypool involved. Keep that doubt. They may not have a star number one, but they might have three basically number ones, and they can keep defenses, on backpedaling if they can do those things. And I think that this team's going to be really good.
Yeah, they're very, very good. I still don't know how I feel about Ben this year. Like I said before, he's been fine. Obviously, the defense is dominant, and they were 8-8 last year with fucking Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. So, Ben's an upgrade over that. If he can get comfortable, which I feel like we're maybe starting to see him get comfortable, they could be really, really good football team. So we're going to have a hell of a battle in the division here down the stretch. It's going to be fun.
I agree. Best division football.
Yeah. It's going to bear out in the records, I think.
All right. Well, I think we're running low on time. So should we tell people to do the pick'em?
Absolutely. Join the Yahoo Pick'em. You can find the group ID and password for it on the Facebook page. And come see us on Wednesday nights at 9:30-ish. Usually about 9:45 after me and Chad are done dicking around, shooting the breeze.
Putting kids to bed.
That's right. All right. Anything else to say to the people?
Keep an eye out for that special Browns draft recap podcast, probably shortly after the Steelers finish off the Titans on Sunday afternoon.
Finish off the Titans? That sounds sexual. Anyways, after the Steelers beat the Titans to completion. Have a good one.